Prema and I have been working together for many years, leading BioDynamic Breathwork and trauma release courses. And Prema is a body-oriented practitioner in her own accord. And a lot of the time that you work with the clients, you do somatic experiencing, also working with other topics and other modalities that you bring in. But what I would like to discuss today with you is the topic of shame. It's a big one, and from my observation over many years of working with people, this is a topic that keeps coming up for people in sessions.
Sure.
So I would like to explore, how is shame different from guilt, in your opinion?
Okay. Okay. That's a great question. So I want to back up just a moment. You said shame is a topic that keeps coming up. And that's very true, because one of the hallmarks of developmental trauma that happened to us in our earlier years of life, one of the lasting imprints that you will see most frequently is this deep, pervasive sense of shame. And to simply distinguish shame and guilt, you could say that shame is a sense that I am bad, I am wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong, broken, unlovable, unworthy of connection about me. Versus guilt is more of a sense of I did something wrong. Guilt is I misbehaved, I treated somebody badly, I didn't keep my word, I did this or that. And guilt can actually then motivate us to go ahead and make a repair. Guilt, I'm doing something, I break somebody's, I break my partner's whatever, I feel guilty, I go and I apologize and I try to repair, either get a new one or do whatever. Shame would have me be, I broke this thing, oh my God, I can't believe how horrible I am. I've done this once again, I'm so messed up, there's something what is wrong with me? I always get things wrong. So one, shame makes us say it's about me. Guilt says it's about my behavior. And there is a world of difference between recognizing something is about my behavior, which is changeable, fixable, repairable, and something about me, which feels unfixable, unchangeable, stuck, and no way out.
And how would you say they impact our physical body differently? Do they have different way that we respond in our physicality?
Well, there's different responses to shame. Shame is quite often a mixture of sympathetic activation and some intense sort of freeze response on top of it. If you think about what do we feel often when we feel shame? We feel like we want to disappear, we want to hide, we want to fall through a hole in the floor. There's often a sensations of nausea, sickness. Often the head is kind of like this. You can recognize a shame posture. The eyes go down to the floor. We don't want to be seen. There's very much more of a shutdown state with that. And underneath it is a lot of fear, a lot of activation, a lot of sympathetic charge. Guilt can be in all different ways. Often there's sympathetic charge. But with guilt, again, there's that sense of, okay, it's my behavior, I can do something about it. So you don't have that same degree of freeze or shutdown with it. It's different. It doesn't have that pervasive sense of being stuck and wrong that shame has. And that impacts our physiology for sure.
Okay. And how would you work with shame to support someone to let it go as something perpetuating in the physical body? Because something happens, I understand, it's something that people took on themselves. They were, for example, were shamed as children for doing something, and then, or being natural with their body. And then this is a kind of perpetuating pattern that keeps spinning around in a circle, keep reactivating itself from psychological and physical behavior and physical tension that we carry. So how would you approach it in the session?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different ways to approach shame, and because there's different degrees of severity, that's going to somewhat dictate how much you can even work with it at a time, because shame is very overwhelming. And so titration, working with it slowly, bit by bit, is really important. Otherwise, it's very easy for somebody to fall into a shame freeze, to fall into that shame hole. So some of the things that you want to do in the beginning is help people even start to recognize that there's a voice of shame, that shame is not who they are, that it's this set of beliefs or ideas or a voice. Shame is multifaceted. It is both a bodily experience, it's an emotional experience, and it's a set of beliefs. And you really can't separate them out that much because it's a whole complex. So there's a mental and emotional and physical component to it. And to understand that's important. So first, identify, where did that voice come from? You weren't born with this. Shame is something that is put upon us, often by our caretakers who they themselves were shamed. And so that happens to the children, or we pick it up from the environment, from culture, from religion, from teachers. Unfortunately, we live in a very shame-based world where shame is a weapon that is used quite often against children. So starting to recognize that voice of shame, starting to be able to see what it is, we can start to then work to separate out and also give back that shame. And that's where we want to develop both somatic resources, a sense of being able to feel my ground, my center, to separate, and then to develop the capacity to give it back. And so there's different ways of doing that. It can be working with physically the arms, helping develop a sense of healthy aggression, healthy anger, as a way of saying, you know what, no, this actually was not mine, this is yours. I was not wrong. I was in a crazy-making situation. So often, children, when our parents are the way they are, children make it about themselves. Because if something's wrong with mommy or daddy or my caretakers, I depend on them for survival. If something is wrong with them, I'm really in trouble. So it's actually safer to believe that there's something wrong with me. And then I have some chance of maintaining that connection with my caretaker. If I agree, if I go with what you're saying, that there's something wrong with me, I'm bad, I'm this, I'm whatever, okay, then maybe you'll love me. And that's a child's world. And so we need to start separating out from that, developing a healthy sense of being able to feel our energy, feel our charge, be able to feel our healthy aggression, be able to work to give that shame back. That could be working with our throat, opening our voice, unlocking the jaw, helping to be able to sense and feel the charge in our body, not collapsing with the charge, because shame is a collapse response, and not imploding, not moving that healthy aggression against ourselves, making ourselves more wrong, but starting to work with being able to move that energy out, being able to direct that charge out, so I can start to defend myself and start to say no, start to give back, whatever it may be.
So reestablishing or establishing expression, establishing of actual physical boundaries, pushing away, expanding the boundaries,
All those are
healthy
different
boundaries, getting in contact with the physical body and understanding that I am okay and I am enough as I am.
Which is what we call healthy self-esteem.
Yeah.
The sense of I am a human being like every other human being, and I have inherent value and worth like every human being does. Nobody is higher, nobody is less. By the fact that I'm a human being, I have value. My value isn't because somebody else says I'm good. My value isn't because I've done something good. My value isn't because of what I own or what I've accomplished out in the world. I have inherent worth and value. That's healthy self-esteem.
Nothing is intrinsically wrong with me.
Yeah.
It is something that I adapted as an idea that if I do that, I am loved, I'm accepted in my family structure, mostly where it comes from, and maybe early education as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So those are just some of the somatic ways. I mean, there's many, many, many different ways of working with shame. There isn't a one size fits all, but those are some of the kind of foundational pieces you need to put in place of being able to, a sense of having our ground, finding our center, being able to feel our charge, feel our body, being able to separate, make a boundary, find our voice, being able to feel our own healthy, like I said, our own healthy aggression, which then is actually a sense of our own strength. Shame is a suppression of our strength. We had to suppress ourselves.
Collapsed energy.
Yes, exactly. We had to do that at one point as children. Healthy aggression is like, okay, I can feel my energy, I can be here, I can speak up for what I say, learning how to make boundaries, learning how to also tolerate the discomfort that comes from making boundaries with people in the world. It's a skill we didn't learn as children if we had a lot of shame in our household. So also part of it is learning how to be with discomfort as you learn this new skill, because it is going to be uncomfortable. And then over time, it's so worth it.
Yeah. Learning pretty much how to avoid the collapse.
Yes, and stay grounded and present and centered.
Yeah. And in working with biodynamic breathwork, it's exactly what we do. Mm-hmm. We actually turn collapsed energy into power.
Yes.
By conscious expression, the conscious emotional expression. Mm-hmm. And shame is an emotion, or is it a state?
It's both. It's an emotion, it's a set of beliefs, and it's a physiological response. It's all three. That's why it's so global. Yeah. It is so global. Yeah, and there's always things like inner child work is really helpful. And that's where breath work actually, because breath work can really take us back to that early place and help us meet and feel the feelings that we couldn't feel then. To feel the feelings that shame is locking down. Shame is there. It's meant to stop something from happening. You're playing with your sibling, everything's going fine, and then all of a sudden you get into a fight, you're hitting them, whatever, and then someone comes in, hey, stop that, that voice, that like, what are you doing? And then blah, 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 that is meant to stop and interrupt. Mm-hmm. And so part of it then is, okay, shame then combined with other feelings inside of us. We can start to feel shame about our anger, shame about grief, shame about happiness, shame about pleasure, all of it. Yeah?
And I've heard also, and I don't remember if I heard it from you or from some other source, that it's kind of an evolutionary part that evolved in the evolution of social behavior.
That's healthy
in
shame.
Human beings. Yeah. So healthy shame is needed to.
So you don't steal your neighbor's food.
Yeah, exactly.
Healthy shame is needed so you can learn how to adapt to the rules of a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's really
a socialization.
It's a socialization. Yes.
Yes. Healthy shame. That's different than toxic shame. Healthy shame is, no, you don't do that. Okay, I know you're feeling sad. I know you're feeling angry right now. Your brother did something that hurt you. I get it. But you don't hit him. I love you. I love you both. And it is not okay to hit him. And so you're going to sit there for a bit, and then we're going to talk this over, and we're going to talk about what you're feeling and why it's not okay to hit your brother. You're making it about the behavior. You're not making it about the child.
So when we work with biodynamic breathwork, a lot of the work is focused to open up energy that's locked up in our pelvis and mm-hmm. support that energy to flow up through the body to open with the 7 belts of tension. Yeah. So as I understand, a huge topic is shame around sexuality, mm-hmm. Which religion explored in every way possible. So this collapsed energy, collapsed sexuality, shame and guilt around sexuality. Mm-hmm. Like, how do we, I know we carry it in this form of tension that we carry in our belly, that we carry in our sex center, mm-hmm. that is not allowing it to flow up to the heart so it can become love. It can open us from the inside. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So when I have observed in many situations, when people in the sessions allow themselves to transcend that feeling of shame and even guilt, for that matter, around their physical body and feeling comfortable with their sexuality, with just feeling sexual energy arises. There's a huge transformation happens there, and that can happen in the duration of one single session if someone who's ready to take a look at it. But this can be a topic that needs to be addressed over the multiple sessions and even multiple years for someone who's been shamed so much in their family of origin or religious conditioning. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I agree with you. It's I mean, it's so many layers because, like you said, it's family, it's school, it's peers. Later on, you can get shamed by your peers around sexuality. It's religion, it's the culture at large. So many labels around how
Shame around your skin color, about
Yeah.
your religious identity,
Yeah,
even.
yeah, yeah. So it's deep work. It's necessary work. It's painful work. And that shutdown that it produces really robs us of a lot of joy and pleasure. And I do think that breath work is one of the great ways to open that back up, especially because then as an adult, as our bodies start to open up through the breath work and we start to feel the pleasure, even if it's, obviously it's not sexual in a breathwork session, but something starts to open, and then we come to it for more of an adult relationship rather than this child relationship to their body or a child understanding of sexuality. And that would be somebody who wants to work on this, who comes to the session because they want to work on this. So they're bringing their adult awareness and adult consciousness to it rather than this child shamed awareness or child consciousness.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice talking.
That is it for our
That's a
interview
wrap.
with Prema for now, and we will be back with more. As Prema and I have been working together for some years with biodynamic breathwork, we have seen on so many levels the changes that begin to happen with people. Even after a 1 week course, people start to change the way that they relate to their physical body, and they take away from working with us in the group environment, whether it's online or in person. They take away a different understanding of how the tension was being held in their body, and how, as this tension releases, they begin to gain a different level of energy. Because the tension, in its essence, is arrested energy. And when this arrested energy releases, it transforms into love, into pleasure, into dance, into meditation, into sexuality. And when, even in today's demo session we had today, with working with the heart, I was watching Prema give this amazing, beautiful demo session. I was moved, and in how in such a short time you were able to support the client to open up and transform something that she was carrying for so many years.
Her life.
Like being a lifetime, pretty much.
Yeah.
Being a caregiver, stepping into this position unconsciously to be a caregiver for a parent,
Yeah.
but in the process sacrificing and cutting off her own truth and her own energy. I would love if you talk a little bit about it. What was happening for you as a supporter, and what you were noticing? You just retrace the steps of that session, how it was flowing.
Yeah, so we were, obviously today was about teaching how to work with the thoracic belt of tension. Involves our whole chest, our arms, our shoulders, and we were exploring this posture of, stay away, no, versus reaching out for somebody, versus slowly opening to the world. and exploring how this felt more comfortable in some ways, but to open and be seen, to come forth, felt really scary. You know, to actually, like, who am I? How do I belong? Do I have a right to exist? You know, my identity is more around being a caretaker, taking care of others. And then when it comes to me, I don't know. My voice is gone. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. And it's very, I think, I'm sure men can relate to, but I think it's a pattern that a lot of women can relate to. So it was quite beautiful as we start to explore and really move into her saying no, and then starting to open up and realize what comes up into her throat, and then out from there, supporting her to actually say what she's always wanted to say but has never been able to find her own expression, to find that sense of her healthy aggression, her healthy sense of no, not an automatic no that gets created from the body armoring that makes her hide behind something and doesn't let her come out, but rather this healthy sense of no, this is not what I want. This is not who I am. I want something different. And there's a big difference, because one is I'm stepping into my power and I'm able to say no, and therefore I can choose. Versus the armoring, which is what was mostly showing up for her before, just said, no, don't speak up, don't go out into the world, don't say much, don't express much. And it was unconscious.
Interrupted outward movement.
Yeah, and it was an unconscious, she just knew she had fear around speaking. She knew she had fear about, she could support other people, but coming out was scary to her without a clear understanding of why, because that's the functioning of the armoring, to keep things out of conscious awareness. And so that's what was happening in her body. And so as we're able to consciously explore that with the breath, with movement, with touch, and start to open and move through the layers, the sadness, the anger, the frustration, and then finally with that, this energy of my energy can come out, it is safe. Then something really beautiful opened for her, and she came into like this aliveness and presence of, this is who I am.
Yeah,
this is what I
face
want.
looked very differently at the end of the session.
Yeah.
It's just a general sense, just the aura. I'm not a very esoteric person, but just the energetic field of that person became so much bigger.
And I think that's important to understand, because our body has us in patterns. We are patterned. Our energy is patterned, whether that means we have a lot of energy or a little energy. We can hold our energy, we collapse, we have anxious energy, depressed energy, angry energy, whatever it is. Our body holds us in a pattern. And when then we start to open up the body, we then start to dissolve that patterning. And we can come much more then into a freer sense of who I am, what I want. People today were telling me at lunch, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe how much energy I have. I've been so exhausted, and I feel so much energy. Because there's so many different ways in which we have patterned ourselves to hold ourselves suppressed, down, tight, starting to melt and move through those layers of patterning, and then something organically gets to arise that is very, very beautiful and really necessary.
Yeah, in essence, we are kind of thawing, melting what we spent entire life putting in place just to feel safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there could be other ways to creating safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that tension, this armoring, it uses up so much our physical energy. And if not addressed later in life, it causes disease, because the actual tension, it interrupts of the flow of our bioenergy, which is so needed to keep the homeostasis in the body, for the body to rejuvenate, revitalize, and heal itself. Yeah, so restoring natural cycles of sleep and alertness, you know, the feeling, releasing the feelings of shame and guilt that we talked about earlier. Anxiety is another thing. It's a body constantly generating more energy than it's using. That's all that extra energy in the body turns into anxiety, turns into compulsive behaviors. So working with biodynamic breathwork, I found over the many years of doing it, it feels like it's so rewarding to see the transformation that happens in people in a very short time.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing what can happen. And I think what's really beautiful, particularly about the in-person work, is these 7 days of working systematically through the body, and how one day builds upon the next, upon the next, upon the next. And so you can see through this week, this big wave of change that happens in people's personality, in their sense of pleasure, enjoyment, sense of safety, their sense of belonging, the feeling of being able to connect to other people, and this lightness in their being. It's like people were on, what is this, day 3 or day 4 now? I'm not even sure what we're on.
Day 4.
Day 4. And there's such this lightness and playfulness and joy that is moving through the space. It's just, it's yummy. It's yummy.
Yeah. Yeah. We come today to this mid portion of the body. We're in the heart now. We come going from the top down. We're moving to the heart. So now the heart has that softness around it. The people reaching out, they're hugging, they're touching, they're playful with each other.
Yeah.
And it's a joy to see
Absolutely.
and be around that energy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You're invited to join us in our next workshop, and we are very happy, excited to support you in your exploration.